Introducing DualSense, the new wireless game controller for PlayStation 5. I don't think I'm ever going to get used to calling it no damn DualSense. But lots to unpack here. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy J-Main, back checking in with the people, back with another video. And today, PlayStation dropped a nice little surprise on us in the lead up to the next generation hardware release. PlayStation 5 controller has officially been revealed as the DualSense. Now, I thought, right off the bat, I thought this was a goddamn joke, because when I first saw it, I thought it was a third-party PS4 controller. I didn't know what the hell I was looking at, because I didn't see this at first on Twitter. My homie had texted me in the group chat, and he was like, "Don't this look like a Mad Catz controller?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, dude! What the hell is this?" He was like, "That's the PlayStation 5 controller." I said, "The hell, no, it's not." I go on Twitter, and I see PlayStation officially announced the DualSense as the PlayStation 5 controller. So when I first looked at it, I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like it. To me, it looked like a third-party knockoff controller. One of them controllers you gave the homies when they came over to play multiplayer games. Like one of them ones that you kept tucked in the entertainment stand. One of the ones you kept tucked underneath the TV in a dresser somewhere. For when the real controllers die or break down, that's when you whip those out. Or, like I said, when the homies come over and you want to give them one of them busted down controllers. That was based off the first image that I saw. In addition to that, when I saw it, I noticed that the color scheme was not the traditional one color. Usually, when at the launch of a new system, the controllers are one color. PS4, you had the black DualShock 4. PS3, you had the 6-axis, and then eventually the DualShock 3, which was all black. PS2, same thing. PS1 was the gray controller, but still one color scheme. This time, PlayStation decided to take the route of a dual color scheme, maybe a little hint of blue in there, but mainly black and white. So they kind of combined the two colors that you kind of normally see when it comes to controllers, black and white, with some blue accents. As we know, that's PlayStation's official color. So the color scheme definitely threw me off. Now, I had my initial thoughts, and some people started, showing me more pictures, because I didn't look at the article right away. I was just kind of going in on that first picture that I saw. So there's another picture going around where the controller's kind of laying on its back, and you kind of get it from a side view. And that image, it looked like a traditional DualShock 4, just a little bit beefier. And in that image, I'm like, okay, that looks nice. That looks like a DualShock 4, just a little bit beefier. And I'm okay with that, because me personally, I think the DualShock 4 is the best controller ever made in terms of form factor, size. I think the triggers are nice. I love the bumper L1, R2 buttons. Give me, analog sticks next to each other like that, not the Xbox controller way where one's at the top left, one's at the bottom right. I hate those kind of analog sticks. I like my analog sticks symmetrical, left and right to each other, preferably down below, and my face buttons above. So to see that is staying the same, of course, that's a breath of fresh air. And then looking at the picture some more, we can see that the PlayStation button, which is usually the button you press to go home, is actually a PlayStation symbol now. Instead of a circle with a PlayStation logo on the circle, it's actually the PlayStation logo. So in addition to just, some outside view of the controller, we can see that the light bar is no longer there. At the top of the controller, you now have the it's just the USB port to charge the controller, but you will notice that underneath the touchpad, it's like some blue accents. And what they said in the article is that they pretty much built the light bar underneath the controller. And so now the lights shine from the front view. When you're holding the controller, it's facing you now. So now you can actually see those lights without having to flip your controller over to the top to see that. I thought that was a good idea because it was stupid for them to have that light bar at the top. Who's gonna see that? I know eventually in the newer versions of the DualShock, you could see it a little bit through the top of the touchpad, but even still, that wasn't enough. So in this picture, it looks like those lights on the side shine pretty bright, and you can see those clearly if you just glance down at the controller to see what color it is. Because as we know, some games take advantage of that color thing, where it affects what player you are. It might change color. Your health in the game, if you're like dying, it'll go down to like red and stuff like that. If you have full health, it'll be green, and then if you're in the middle, it'll be like orange, stuff like that. So some games actually take advantage of that. Hopefully more games will take advantage of it now, since it's more front and direct. Just going over the article a little bit, and I'll have the link down in the description. I don't want to read it word for word because it's a pretty lengthy article, but just some highlights from the article in which PlayStation put out. They talked about how the DualShock 4 was a popular controller, so they didn't want to do too much to change that. But with the new features that they wanted to add to it, they had to make a couple adjustments. And so, as I talked about before in another article, they wanted to add adaptive triggers. So the adaptive trigger components, they said, they had to put new hardware into this thing, and they wanted to do that without making it feel bulky. So the design team, they worked closely to try and get, all that hardware in there at the same time, keeping the bulk down of the controller. And they said, they tested this controller with many gamers with all different hand sizes, and they feel like out of the hundreds of prototypes that they had, this was the design that worked the best. So now, if you don't know what adaptive triggers are, they pretty much explained it as tension that you would feel in the triggers when you're like drawing a bow or something like that. So you'll feel that when you're pulling it versus maybe like a gun. A gun will feel different from a bow. So that kind of makes it a little bit more of an immersive experience, being that it'll feel different depending on what kind of game you're playing and stuff like that. So adaptive triggers was something that they talked about and highlighted in this article. Another thing that they talked about was that returning in the DualSense from the DualShock 4 and the DualShock 3 is rechargeable batteries. We all know Xbox has continued to go the route of actual batteries in the controller, and PlayStation decided to keep the rechargeable battery. Now, I'll be the first to admit, the PlayStation 4 controller, the DualShock 4, the battery life, in comparison to other wireless controllers like the Switch Pro controller, the battery life is trash. It is what it is. I typically don't have that problem because I'm playing at a desk. So if the battery does start to die, I just plug it in, and my experience does not change. In fact, if you don't know, a plugged-in controller actually responds faster than a wireless controller. So it's actually somewhat of an advantage. Maybe a small one, but it is somewhat of an advantage. But I don't have that problem. Some people like to complain about it, how it only has 5 or 6 hours of battery life. 9 times out of 10, I'm not even gaming for that long. So plugging it back up after I'm done is not a problem. But nice to see that returning, because I don't want to have to deal with batteries and changing them over when they die. They also talked about the share button. We all know the share button was probably the most popular feature of the new things that they introduced in the DualShock 4. The share button is making a return, but they're taking it to the next level. It's actually no longer even called the share button. They're calling it the create button. And they're saying they're once again pioneering new ways for players to create epic gameplay content to share with the world or just to enjoy for themselves. So that seems to be something that they're going to talk about at a later date when they get closer to launch. I'm interested in seeing what that's about, because I love using the share button just to quick and easy take a screenshot, share it out to Twitter, Facebook, and stuff like that. I thought that was cool, and even Xbox took that and ran with it with their new controller for the Series X, because that even has a share button in it. So what else did they talk about? Haptic feedback. Haptic feedback was also something that they put in the DualSense controller, and they described it as adding a variety of powerful sensations you'll feel when you play, such as slow grittiness of driving a car through mud. That is something that can be cool. Again, like the adaptive triggers, we hope to see different games other than first-party games, especially the early-gen first-party games, utilize it. You know, making the game experience more immersive when you have something that changes depending on what game you're playing. You know what I'm saying? So that'll be cool. But all of that added to the fact that the controller looks to be more bulky. And I'll get back into that because I do have more to say about the actual size of the controller too, and the color scheme. What else did we talk about? That was pretty much it. Oh, I can't forget. The DualSense also has a built-in microphone, which will enable players to easily chat with friends without a headset. Ideal for jumping into a quick conversation. But of course, if you're planning to chat for a longer period, it's good to have a headset handy. To be honest, I don't even know why they put this here. I can't imagine a microphone on a controller being something that is useful for other than like voice commands, you know? Who is gonna wanna be talking through a microphone on a controller, which typically is sitting at a good 2 feet away from your face? And on top of that, you are clicking buttons and analog sticks moving around as you're playing. So not only are you talking through a microphone that's far away from your face, you're clicking things that's gonna interfere with the microphone as you're playing a game. So I understand why they say keep a headset ready. I don't even know why they mentioned this for other than voice commands. Nobody's gonna use that as a primary microphone. So is this a way for them to not include one of those cheap ass headsets that they had in the box for the PlayStation 4? Like, is that what they're doing here? It seems that way because that's the only other thing I could think of for them to not do something like that, and to build it into the controller and mention that you can use it for chat. Makes no sense to me. Makes absolute zero sense. So that's pretty much all the new features that they announced for the DualShock 5. Like I said before, for me, the controller at certain angles looks like a knockoff third-party controller. Then at some other angles, it looks like a beefier DualShock 4. So it's gonna come down to me getting this controller in my hands ultimately and feeling how it feels. I do gotta say, one of the pictures I saw, the grips actually look longer than they did on the DualShock 4, and that's why a lot of people have been comparing it to the 360 controller, probably because it looks like bigger in that sense, and it looks a little bit bulkier, like a Xbox 360 or Xbox One controller. So I love the 360 controller, so if that's the size, which is a little bit bigger than the DualShock 4, I'm cool with that. But it all depends on how it feels in the hands. It all depends on how it feels in the hands. So we're gonna have to wait and see, folks. But first impressions, it's alright. It's alright. I need it in all black. Some people have been making mock-ups on Twitter of the colors being in all black with the colored face buttons. I need to see Sony do something like that. I know they're probably not gonna do it at launch because usually it takes a while for us to get custom controllers and color schemes, but maybe they can invest in something like that Xbox, what was it, the ID controller ID program where you can customize the color of the controller and stuff like that. That'd be pretty dope. Shit, what else can I say about this? I think this controller is going to be expensive by itself, since they're adding all these new features to it. The form factor seems to be a little bit bigger, some more material. Supposed to be having some new features and stuff like that. Hopefully a bigger battery for longer battery life and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be expensive just to get it by itself. Hopefully, the DualShock 4 does work on the PlayStation 5, just in case I'm not feeling this. I can go back to my DualShock 4. And I also want to mention that I think the PlayStation 5 might be this color, because if you look at the color scheme, the black, white with the blue, that's actually the same color scheme of the PlayStation VR. So keep that in mind for when they actually reveal the actual console, because I think it's gonna look this way in terms of color. But that's all I got for my thoughts on this controller. 15-minute video for a damn controller, but I had a lot to say because I don't know how I'm feeling about this controller yet. First impressions are okay at best. Let me know down in the comment section what you guys think about this. Don't forget to rate the video, subscribe to the channel, of course, if you're new. Also, check me out on Press Start Podcast every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on Kofi Play's channel. The link for that will be down in the description. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all in my next video. Peace.